Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee with regard to proposals to amend the Constitution to entrench the constituency development, Senate oversight, and national government affirmative action funds, and the Procedure and House Rules Committee with regard to proposals to amend the standing orders to strengthen parliamentary oversight of the executive as to facilitate public participation pursuant to Article 118 of the Constitution. Now, therefore, pursuant to the provisions of Article 1, Part 2 and 95, Part 2 of the Constitution, this House notes, considers and makes general comments on the proposal contained in the memoranda by His Excellency the President. The debate on this motion already began, so this afternoon the members will be carrying on with that debate. It was moved by the leader of the majority party in the National Assembly. Also in the order of business this afternoon is a motion by the leader of the Kenya delegation in the OACPS-EU-JPA. Now, this motion regards to the report of the 42nd session of the Organization of Africa, Caribbean and Pacific States and the European Union Joint Parliamentary Assembly. That motion will be moved this afternoon by the leader of the Kenya delegation to that Joint Parliamentary Assembly. Also this afternoon, a petition will be presented on behalf of Mr. Amos Nyasani. The petition will be presented by the Honorable Speaker, and the subject matter of the petition is the management of the SGR services, and the petition will be committed to the Public Petitions Committee by the Speaker of the National Assembly. If you're just joining us, the business of the National Assembly is about to begin this afternoon, the 21st day of February 2023, where the members of Parliament will be debating the general debate on the proposal to Parliament to consider amending the Constitution and the standing orders. That motion was moved by the leader of the majority party. The debate on it already began. On your screen is the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Gladys Bos-Sholay, walking into the chambers, of course, following the maze. Now, I will hand you over for this live broadcast, which has been made possible courtesy of the PBU and KBC. My name is Edward Kabasa. Enjoy your viewing.
Let us pray. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable members, the East African Legislative Assembly, EALA, is one of the organs of the East African Community and is established under Article 9 of the Treaty for the Establishment of the East African Community. Honorable members, you will recall that the Parliament of Kenya held the election of the Kenya's representatives to the East African Legislative Assembly on the 17th November 2022, pursuant to Rule 15.1 of the East African Legislative Assembly election of members of the Assembly Rules 2017. The members were subsequently sworn in on the 19th of December 2022 during the inauguration of the 5th East African Legislative Assembly, whose term will terminate in December 2027. Honorable members, I have since received information that on 20th December 2022, members of the 5th East African Legislative Assembly elected the Right Honorable Joseph Ntakirutimana from the Republic of Burundi as the 6th Speaker of the Assembly. Noting the critical role that the Assembly plays in the furtherance of the East African Community objectives, we look forward to working with the new leadership at the East African Legislative Assembly to ensure fulfillment of mutual goals within the region. Honorable members, allow me on behalf of the National Assembly, and indeed on my own behalf, to convey our congratulations to the Right Honorable Joseph Ntakirutimana on his election as the Speaker of the Assembly and wish him a successful term in office. I thank you, and signed off by the Right Honorable Moses Wetangula, EGH MP, Speaker of the National Assembly.
Order number 3, messages.
Honorable members, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 42.1, I wish to report to the House that I have received a message from His Excellency the President regarding the declaration of vacancies in the offices of Chairperson and members of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC. In the message, His Excellency the President conveys that following his assent to the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill 2022 on the 23rd of January 2023, he has now formally declared the vacancies in the aforementioned offices via Kenya Gazette number 1901 of the 14th of February 2023. This will kickstart the process for the recruitment of the chairperson and members of the IEBC. Honorable members, for clarity, Section 2 of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Act number 1 of 2023 states as follows, and I quote, "The first schedule to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Act 2011 is amended in paragraph 1 by deleting subparagraph 2 and substituting therefore the following new subparagraph. 2. The selection panel shall consist of A, 1 man and 1 woman, nominated by the Parliamentary Service Commission, B, 1 person nominated by the Public Service Commission, C, 1 person nominated by the Political Parties Liaison Committee, D, 1 person nominated by the Law Society of Kenya, and E, 2 persons nominated by the Interreligious Council of Kenya. Honorable members, the President is therefore notifying the House and the relevant bodies which are required to submit members to constitute the selection panel as stipulated in law. In this regard, honorable members, the Parliamentary Service Commission has already commenced the process of identifying its 2 nominees to ensure the panel is properly established as per the law. Thank you, honorable members.
Order number 4, petitions.
Honorable members, Article 119 of the Constitution gives a right to any person to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority. Further, Standing Order number 2252B requires the Speaker to report to the House any petition other than those presented by a member. In that regard, honorable members, I wish to report to the House that my office has received a petition from one Mr. Amos Nyasani regarding the matter of the management of the Standard Gauge Railway SGR services. The petitioner states that in 2019, the Kenya Revenue Authority KRA and the Kenya Ports Authority KPA jointly issued a directive for the clearance of transit cargo from the Port of Mombasa to Naivasha Inland Container Depot, NICD. However, later, in 2022, a new directive was issued to revert the services back to the Port of Mombasa, Kenya. Honorable members, the petitioner is concerned about the lack of transparency, particularly pertaining to the revenues collected by the Kenya Railways Corporation for both passenger and freight services since its inception. The petitioner states that efforts to get answers on the matter through the Ministry of National Treasury and the Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development and Public Works and the Kenya Railways have not been forthcoming. Honorable members, the petitioner therefore prays that the National Assembly interrogates the Kenya Railways Corporation and other relevant state departments on the general operations and the revenues collected by the Kenya Railways Corporation. Honorable members, having established that the matter raised in the petition is well within the authority of this House, and further, the matters raised in this petition are not pending before any court of law or constitutional body or legal body, I hereby commit the petition to the Public Petitions Committee for the consideration and pursuant to Standing Order 208A. The committee is required to consider the petition and report its finding to the House and to the petitioner in accordance to Standing Order 2272. I thank you, honorable members.
Order number 5, papers.
There's a point. What's your point of order? Mwalimu Malema Ombaka, member for Emuhaya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for according me this chance. Ordinarily, Honorable Speaker, with your, I seek your indulgence, if you could weigh in on that petition for some times. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The petition is going to the committee. It will later come to the House, and the House will have an opportunity to weigh in on it. Thank you. May proceed, Leader of Majority.
All right. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, February 21st, 2023. 1. The annual report of the Parliamentary Service Commission for the financial year 2021-2022. Report of the Auditor General and financial statements on Eldama Ravine Technical and Vocational College for 18 months, period ended 30th June 2022. Reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2021 and the certificates therein. Kabianga Tea Farm Company Limited, University of Kabianga, Kisii University, Taita Taveta University, Rongo University, Kamukunji Technical and Vocational College, Lodwar Technical and Vocational College, Tomboya University College, Kenya Utalii College, Bukura Agricultural College, Coast Water Works Development Agency, National Mining Corporation, Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Ewaso Nyiro South Development Authority, Kenya Pipeline Company Limited, Koshin Technical Training Institute, Musakasa Technical Training Institute, Bumbe Technical Training Institute, Mawego Technical Training Institute, Sotik Technical Training Institute, Sikri Technical and Vocational College for the Blind and Deaf, Technical University of Mombasa, Kenya Ferry Services, Meru National Polytechnic, and Nyandarua National Polytechnic. 2. reports of the Auditor General and financial statements of NGCDF with respect to the following constituencies for the year ended 30th June 2021 and certificates therein: Kasipul, Baringo Central, Kabete, Kikuyu, and Gatundu North. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Chairperson, Public Debt and Privatization Committee.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 21st February 2023. Report of the Public Debt and Privatization Committee on its consideration of the Consolidated Fund Services Expenditure for the Supplementary Estimates Number 1 of 2022-2023. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Chairperson, Committee on Delegated Legislation.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 21st February 2023. Report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Crops Coffee General Amendment Regulations 2022.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
I now call upon the Chairperson for Public Debt and Privatization Committee to give the notice of motion.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion: that this House adopts the report of the Public Debt and Privatization Committee on its consideration of the Consolidated Fund Services expenditures for the Supplementary Estimates Number 1 of 2022-2023, laid on the table of the House today, Tuesday, February 2023. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I now call upon the Chairperson for Committee on Delegated Legislation to give your notice of motion.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I wish to give notice of the following motion: that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Crops Coffee General Amendment Regulations 2022, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 21st, 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 18 of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013, and Standing Order number 210, paragraph 4, subparagraph B, annuls in its entirety the Crops Coffee General Amendment Regulations 2022, published as the legal notice number 102 of 2022. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I now call upon the Honorable Peter Kaluma, member for Homa Bay Town.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order number 33, Rule 1, I seek leave for the adjournment of the House for purposes of discussing an urgent matter of national importance, being the ongoing challenges being faced in the implementation of the competency-based curriculum within the education system. Honorable Speaker, as part of the implementation of the competency-based curriculum, the Ministry of Education recently issued guidelines domiciling junior secondary schools within primary schools. The transition has brought anxiety among parents and learners, especially regarding the lack of capacity for optimal operationalization of the system, given the current state of infrastructural development in most public schools. Additionally, it is observed that due to the lack of adequate training and deployment of teaching staff, one teacher is being assigned to teach up to 14 subjects in the junior secondary schools. As a matter of fact, learning has not been going on in majority of public schools in the country. This is alarming and will inevitably be detrimental to the education sector in the long run, as pupils in these schools are likely to be denied quality education. It is against this background, Honorable Speaker, that I seek leave for the adjournment of the House to discuss this matter of great national importance. Honorable Speaker, I so move, and I confirm to the Chair, Honorable Speaker, that I believe there is support and insufficient support within the House for this adjournment.
Everyone, say everyone. Full.
I can see that this is unanimous. You may be seated now, members. Honorable members, as it seems that this motion has full House support, I direct that the House be adjourned at 4 p.m. For discussions to be held by members on this important matter.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
I now call upon the Honorable Gidua Wamashukuru to give you a statement.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to provision of Standing Order 44.2c, I wish to request for a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee of Lands regarding composition of land owners following compulsory acquisition of land by the national government for construction of Nairobi Western Bypass Highway. Honorable Speaker, in June 2016, the government of Kenya commissioned construction of the Nairobi Western Bypass Highway with the aim of reducing traffic congestion within the city. Construction of the Western Bypass was launched in March 2019 with funding from China Exim Bank. The bypass, which stretches 16.5 kilometers, is a dual carriageway that connects from Gitaro at the end of the southern bypass in Kikuyu town, then traverse into the northern eastern direction through Wangige, Kihara, Ndenderu, Rumingi, and terminates in Ruaka, where it connects to northern bypass. Honorable Speaker, Article 43 of the Constitution, read together with Section 111 and 115 of the Land Act 2012, oblige the government where it is exercise its power to compulsory acquire land to compensate the affected landowners in a prompt, full, and just manner. Further to Section 125(1) of the Land Act require the government through the National Land Commission to as soon as practicable, to take possession, pay full and just compensation to all persons interested in the land. Honorable Speaker, despite this express provision of the Constitution and the law, hundreds of landowners whose parcel of land were compulsory acquired to pave way for construction of the Nairobi Western Bypass are yet to be compensated by the National Land Commission. This is notwithstanding the fact that as at 30th June 2020, the National Land Commission had 10,453,660,980 and an account number 010-100-3298-0000 that as at held at the National Bank, and that as at 30th June 2021, the fund stood at 13,727,766,032. The funds are idle and acquire interest, yet the landowners who surrendered possession of their land, the funds are idle and acquire interest, yet The landowners who surrender their possession of their land early to the government are just in trust that they would be compensated a full and in timely manner. Honorable Speaker, it is against this backdrop that I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee of Lands on the following one. Could the chairperson explain why the landowners who are affected by the compulsory acquisition of land for construction of Nairobi Western Bypass have not been paid, yet the monies are available with the National Land Commission? 2, who are the beneficiaries of the interest earned in the compensation account held by the National Land Commission? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I now call upon the Honorable Beatrice Chemngeno Kemei, member for Kericho County.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I actually rise to request for statement regarding sexual harassment of female workers in various estates in Kericho County. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 44.2c, I rise to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Labor regarding sexual harassment of female workers in various estates in Kericho County. Honorable Speaker, it is of great concern that female workers in various estates in Kericho County have deplorable working and living conditions and have been victims of sexual harassment and abuse at the hands of male bosses. These vulnerable female workers at the estates with no other sources of income have no choice but to have sex with male supervisors in order to survive. Sex is reportedly demanded by supervisors in return for allocating lighter duties, for helping with securing better housing and guaranteeing their meager wages will not be deducted. It appears as if all the supervisors are male and hence no consideration of female parity. Female workers who refuse sexual advances from male supervisors pay a high price and are given too much work or allocated to work in lonely and dangerous blacking zones. These estates do not adhere to the policy on sexual harassment. As a result of this despicable and inhumane treatment, these workers have contracted various sexually transmitted infections, including HIV and AIDS, eventually losing their lives. Honorable Speaker, it is high time that the rights and dignity of female workers is upheld and respected by male bosses in estates. And it is against this background I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Labor on the following. 1, could the chairperson provide concrete information on the allegations of sexual harassment of female workers in the various estates in Kericho County? Could the chairperson explain what measures the government is putting in place to protect the rights of female workers in these estates? Could the chairperson explain measures the government is putting in place to ensure these estates adhere to labor laws and implement policy on sexual harassment? Could the chairperson consider carrying out investigations into these heinous acts, ensure culpable perpetrators are brought to book and justice is served to the victims? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
As this is a very urgent, very important matter, and I know that there were other members who had attempted to make statements to that effect, I now call upon the Honorable Beatrice Alachi, member for Dagoretti North, to weigh in on this thing.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise on Standing Order 84 to make it a personal statement, but also for the women of Kericho, and I want to thank the women rep of Kericho But, Madam Speaker, let me just read my statement after looking at what happened on BBC yesterday night. Dear honorable members, today is a very difficult day for me as a woman, a leader, and a citizen of Kenya. Today, I have been reminded that slavery still exists in this nation. Today, I stand dejected because this slavery has been going on under our nose as leaders, because I cannot explain how a man has violated women in tea plantations for 30 years and nothing has been done. Today, my fellow members, the tea you drank this morning is laced with blood. Blood of women who have been raped on the same soil that they work tirelessly to fend for their children. Land that up to today cannot be explained how multinationals acquired in the guise on investment, watch with flowery policies as generations of women get raped one after another, year after a year, and everyone around them turns a blind eye. Some of us are very incapable, Madam Speaker, of turning a blind eye to such atrocities. And BBC last night aired a documentary that took them 18 months to investigate, to capture the voices of our mothers, sisters, and daughters in the hands of Jeremiah Koskei, John Chebuchok, Samuel Yebei, and John Asava. The crime of rape in tea plantations is one that never stops. It is one that no one wants to stop. But I want to believe that this House will do everything within its powers to stop it today. This crime is one that is prosecutable under the Sexual Offences Act, yet goes on unbattered because no one wants to hold multinationals accountable. How else would we explain our silence 11 years after the Kenya National Human Rights Report on the same? The media has now chosen to highlight it, and I take it to the doorsteps of the Unilever and Finlays. Our undoubtedly members has been exposed, and we cannot remain silent. If we do nothing, we will. And what will we tell the women of Kenya? Do we care? Do we value them? Are we so interested in profits that we turn a blind eye to such atrocities that can only be equated in modern days of slavery? Madam Speaker, I am asking today, who will give justice to these women who work in Unilever and Finlay's tea plantations? Who will give justice? I am asking this House to ensure the multinationals and not continue to sexual abuse our women on the same soil of our forefathers. It is an abomination and a curse on our land when the cries of our women are defended by money in the name of investments. Lastly, Madam Speaker, first step today is Joseph Chepchok, Jeremiah Kosgei, Yebei, and John Asava to sleep in jail tonight. We call upon the CS. Then we can take the next step, Madam Speaker, that no woman is safe when they are still roaming around. Multinationals have to be accountable, and no more flowery sexual harassment policies on paper and nothing tangible to show for it. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is very sad for those women of Kericho who are now HIV positive, even their families and their children. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Elachi. I now call upon just one more member, the Honorable Chepkosgei Muge, member for Nandi County.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to give my comment on the said statement. Honorable Speaker, this morning we woke up to very sad news about what has been happening in Kericho, in the multinationals, Honorable Speaker. Now, Honorable Speaker, I also come from a tea-growing area where we have multinationals. And allow me to quote, Honorable Speaker, a Kiswahili saying that says, ukiona cha mwenziwe kikinyolewa, chako kitie maji. Honorable Speaker, this is not an isolated case, and it's not only happening in Kericho, it is actually happening everywhere and in every workplace in this country. Honorable Speaker, this is a matter that has not been given adequate attention. It is a matter that actually affected so many women and so many people in this country. It is a matter that is actually affecting people who are trying to fend for their families, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the details of the happenings that happened in Kericho as they were exposed, they are extremely serious, Honorable Speaker, and they are actually horrific, so to speak. They do not have a place in this country, Honorable Speaker, and they do not have a place anywhere. Honorable Speaker, as you can see, and as the expose went, you can see that this is actually an endemic issue that deserves urgent attention, Honorable Speaker. It deserves adequate and urgent attention from all stakeholders for justice to be served and for the perpetrators to be held accountable, Honorable Speaker, and for them to be used as an example, Honorable Speaker. I can only say one thing about the perpetrators. Actually, Honorable Speaker, these are perverts who do not deserve any leadership position. They do not deserve any hearing in this country or anywhere else. They should just pay for the heinous crimes and acts they have committed. Honorable Speaker, I want to tell the workers of the multinationals in Kericho and in this country at large, Honorable Speaker, where these things are happening, that the women and the members of parliament in this parliament, Honorable Speaker, will stand with them, and we will ensure that justice is served adequately and they are all brought to book and they are used as perfect examples of anyone who would want to sexually exploit the women or even the men in this country, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, we want to also tell the multinationals that we want to see things happening, not things on paper in regards to sexual abuse and harassment in places of work, Honorable Speaker, so that we don't have good policies on paper, but the actionability or the implementation of the said policies is zero, Honorable Speaker. We will be holding them accountable so that we have conducive working environments for our people who are trying to fend for their families, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, as the committee that has been committed, we want to urge them to give us a very comprehensive report for us to be able to use it first to be to serve justice, and secondly, Honorable Speaker, as a stern warning to anyone who will ever try to do such a thing. Honorable Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Nandi County. Honorable Muge. One moment. This particular statement will be referred to the Departmental Committee on Labor, and on the one for the Honorable Gidhua Wamashukuru will be referred to the Departmental Committee on Infrastructure, Transport and Roads. And I think they will have 2 weeks to respond to it. Thank you. Next order. What's your point of order, Honorable Gikaria?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise on a point of order to seek your direction. Honorable Speaker.
Standing order number.
Honorable Speaker, we have this office that was built and meant for offices of members of Parliament that also houses, I think, 15 committee rooms. Honorable Speaker, we were unable to have our meeting today as Committee on Environment because when we inquired yesterday, we were told there are no rooms for us to be able to meet. Honorable Speaker, we would want to give a direction as to when do we expect these offices to be finalized, and the offices can be accessed by members of parliament and committees for that matter. Honorable Speaker, we are really going through a rough time. Last time we had to, I don't know how many committees were meeting at Windsor, yet we have offices here that we can be able to easily. Maybe, Honorable Speaker, you could give us a direction as to when we expect to start using those facilities, which I want to believe PSC has spent quite a substantial amount of money for us to be able to start using those facilities. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I think the clerk will have picked that from the Hansard and then will be able to give an appropriate response to be communicated from the Speaker at the next session.
Order number 8, motion. General debate on the proposal to Parliament to consider amending the Constitution and the standing orders. Resumption of debate.
Any members who may want to contribute? Okay. I know the last time we were here, Honorable Kirwa still had 7 minutes, and so we'll allow him to start. The Honorable Kirwa. Give Honorable Kirwa the mic.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity that you've given me to continue to support the motion on affirmative action by the President. Madam Speaker, naturally, in this country, women do get a raw deal on most of the issues, especially politically. And I do support as to why, us as Parliament, we need to make sure we abide by the 2/3 gender rule, which I believe it's overdue. Most of the countries, most of the parliaments have complied. Kenya Parliament have not. And we run into a situation where this Parliament might not comply to 2/3 gender rule. I do support the 2/3 gender rule. The other issue that I want to support, Madam Speaker, is the issue of NGCDF. In my constituency, most of the students and all the developments that has taken place in schools is because of NGCDF. And as of today, if the NGCDF will not be available, Madam Speaker, we will not be able to meet all the needs. We will not be able to support children from poor families. We will not be able to actually achieve what we want to do. So I support this motion to entrench NGCDF in the Constitution so that most of the families will get a chance to experience development. The other issue I want to support, Madam Speaker, is the issue of CSS coming to the floor of Parliament to answer questions. I'm not supporting this motion for 2 reasons. I don't support this motion because if we give the CSS the permission to come and answer questions, what will the committees do? The responsibilities of the committee is to actually hold the CSS and answer the questions. But if they come to the floor of the House, then the committees that has been given the responsibility will not have the powers. And so we will be weakening the committees. So on this particular motion, I actually don't support it. 3, I think we need to entrench, constitutionally, committees have a responsibility to the people of Kenya to act as oversight. And if we don't give them that power to act as oversight, then the CSS will be able to get away. I would suggest it stays status quo, whatever it was, it continues, but not take the powers to allow them to come to the floor of the House. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I now call upon Honorable John Waweru, member for Dagoretti South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I do rise to support this proposal by the Kenya Parliament to amend the Constitution to accommodate, among other things, the things that have been listed by the earlier speakers. But Madam Speaker, for me, the biggest concern is the issue of us decentralizing money from the center. Just as we are pursuing the decentralization of monies from the center at Treasury to come to the constituencies, Madam Speaker, I think there is a case that can also be made for the decentralization of monies from the county governments at the center to the wards, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, we as members of Parliament understand the benefits that have been accruing from decentralizing monies to the constituencies. Madam Speaker, I do think that this opportunity we have is the opportunity that we can use to give the same benefits to honorable members of county assemblies who are elected leaders like us, sitting in legislatures like this in 47 counties, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, I would like to propose that with the opportunity that we have right now, we can start working on the way of finding how we can decentralize monies from the centers of counties to get to the lowest unit of devolution, which is a ward. That is why, Madam Speaker, when we were doing the pre-conference, I did come up with a proposal. The proposal that we were calling the County Decentralized Funds, Madam Speaker, and if your memory serves you right, on the day that we were debating this motion at the pre-conference, there was not less than 5 members of County Assembly, led by the Honorable Member of County Assembly from Ngara, the Honorable Mwaura, who had come to witness Kenya Parliament debating these issues, hoping that we as Parliament can champion their needs just as we are championing our own, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, in the interest of time and to save time for other speakers who will be speaking about us, I'm just using this informally to make it a notice that when we get to the third reading of this motion, Madam Speaker, I shall be coming with an amendment that will be seeking, as I said, to decentralize monies from the center of the counties to the lowest unit of devolution, which is the ward, and a fund that can be known as the County Decentralization Fund, Madam Speaker, to be administered at ward level. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity, and I do support.
Honorable members, I'm just following the list here on the requests, but if I call out your name and you've already contributed to this particular motion, you could kindly pass so that other people can have an opportunity. I can see on the list there is the Honorable Bernard Kitur, member for Nandi Hills. Had you contributed? Okay. Next is the Honorable Joseph Makilap, member for Baringo North. The member Makilap is not here? Okay. The Honorable Rahim Dawood, member for North Imenti.
Yes.
But you had spoken to this motion, hadn't you?
No, I have not, Madam Speaker.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam
Yes,
Speaker.
the Honorable Leader of Minority, I can see you have an intervention. You have a point of order? You had spoken to this motion.
Madam Speaker, he's taking my time. Leader of Minority is taking my time.
Minority, please have a seat. We have someone on the floor. I thought you had a point of order. Okay. All right, proceed, Honorable Rahim.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hope my time will be increased because Minority Leader normally takes everybody's time. Madam Speaker, the bill which was, the motion which has been brought to change the Constitution is a very timely one because we've tried to do it in the last Parliament and the two previous Parliaments where we have tried to do the 2/3 gender principle rule where Honorable Adan Duale had brought it a couple of times, and I think the Honorable Deputy Speaker as well had proposed something. Madam Speaker, we need to sort out this 2/3 gender rule. If it is to be passed, it has to be passed in this Parliament. Otherwise, the way we were told by Justice Maraga, the Chief Justice then, Emeritus, where he said that we should dissolve this Parliament. Madam Speaker, we need to get our act together so that nobody can go again to the Supreme Court and ask for a judgment so that this House would be dissolved. Madam Speaker, we have been told regarding cabinet secretaries appearing in Parliament will not assist in any way. The committees will be moribund. It is not true at all because when the CSs come, they will not be able to answer all the questions. So the work of committees will still go on the way it is. It is just that when a CS comes, I remember in the previous Parliament, we changed the standing orders where we accepted that the CSs would come and answer the questions. But at that time, I remember the AG, because I was in the House Rules and Procedure Committee, where the AG refused. He said by doing that, they would be demeaning the CSs and the work would not go on. But Madam Speaker, I agree with the President's reservations that we need the CSs in Parliament so that we can even question them. When they bring questions, we need to interrogate them if they are telling the truth. Because like many of the questions which are asked even today regarding security or the education sector, if the CS was here, it would be very, very easy. It doesn't mean that each and every member of Parliament would ask a question, but many members have got similar questions which could be answered. Madam Speaker, we need to even entrench the NGCDF, GAF, and the other funds which are there, the Senate Oversight Fund. Because, Madam Speaker, we all know, and whoever has served in Parliament knows the importance of NGCDF and GAF funds, because that is the backbone. I mean, we cannot be expected to cede our authority on NGCDF to the counties, which counties do not even, the monies they are allocated, we do not even know how prudently they use that money. So, Madam Speaker, when we are saying we want to entrench it in the Constitution, I think that is the right way. We will do whatever it takes to go and entrench NGCDF and GAF in the Constitution. Madam Speaker, we need...
One moment, Honorable Dawood. Honorable Rosa Buyu, you're next, and I see you're roaming around. You're next speaking, so take your seat. Go on, Honorable Dawood.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, lastly, we need to do what needs to be done. We do not need sideshows that this is, we are going to be creating a system where it is a parliamentary system, whereas we had adopted the presidential system. Madam Speaker, what doesn't work doesn't work. And what works, we need to put it in the Constitution, what works. So when some of our colleagues, because of political interests, they think that because it has been brought by somebody they do not like, that's why they would oppose. Look at the laws in its entirety, the way it is going to assist us and the future, because we should not be thinking only about ourselves. We should be thinking how it's going to assist running of this parliament in a proper way, in a structured way, so that we can be working easily. Madam Speaker, we want to do these things like the two-thirds gender rule. We can be seeing how we're going to go about it. And Madam Speaker, we need even to sort out the boundaries review. Madam Speaker, the boundaries which were done in the year 2010 or earlier, they are due for review. And Madam Speaker, we do not want gerrymandering. We need our constituencies which are there, and we need, even if it is to do new counties, because we cannot have 12 constituencies in one county and then a neighboring county has got only 3 constituencies. Madam Speaker, we need those extra counties to be done and extra constituencies to be done, and which have to be scrapped, let them be scrapped, because that is the law. And if the boundaries review is done, Madam Speaker, I even want to urge my colleagues not to be picketing on each and everything, because that is not the way we are going to make laws. We need to make laws in Parliament, and this is the place to do it, and not outside the House. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate.
Honorable members, as we proceed, I just wish to recognize the presence of Sugoi girls in the Speaker's gallery from Tarbo constituency from Wasingishu County, the City of Champions. I also want to recognize the Kenya Women Parliamentary Association that have made today an African Dress Day. And as you can see, our women are fabulously dressed. Okay, I now call upon, to continue with the debate, I now call upon the Honorable Rosa Buyu, member for Kisumu West.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank you for this opportunity. Madam Speaker, and more than just being grateful that you're sitting on that seat on a day when the Kenya Women Parliamentarians Association have decided to make this an African Attire Day, I want to acknowledge the support that you give KEWOPA. Madam Speaker, we know that there are so many designers, small designers, sometimes even called tailors, in our small rural homes, who struggle to make ends meet through making clothes for members of Parliament and for other people, sometimes even school children, but they go unrecognized. Madam Speaker, what we are doing today as KEWOPA is standing up for these women and telling them that we acknowledge their efforts, we appreciate their efforts, and telling them that in the highest law-making institution of the land, we are proud to wear the designs that they make. Madam Speaker, when you look at the women this afternoon, they look smart. And the clothes they're wearing today have come from nobody else but the local designers. Madam Speaker, I, for one, what I'm wearing today is by a designer known as Jackie Obiero of Baltoni Fashions. This is a lady who has been a designer for over 20 years and has probably never been applauded for her efforts. But today I sit or I stand in Parliament wearing her attire and feeling really smart. Madam Speaker, you don't need to tell me that you think I'm smart, but I can see it in your eyes that you really think I'm smart. Madam Speaker, I want to go to the motion of the day. And right from the onset, I'd like to say that I oppose the amendment of the Constitution and standing orders. Madam Speaker, we know that the work of the committees is actually to interrogate even the ministers on behalf of the other members of Parliament and indeed on behalf of Kenyans. Madam Speaker, when we allow those ministers to actually come into Parliament or onto the floor of the House, we are actually weakening those committees. And Madam Speaker, I remember the effort of BBI to actually make ministers be answerable to members of Parliament was thwarted by no other than the current government. Madam Speaker, Why are we therefore in a hurry to make this about turn, to make ministers come to Parliament to answer questions? What is it that has just happened? Madam Speaker, I would also like to say that we have to make up our minds whether we want to go into presidential or parliamentary system. And if it's a presidential system, we must respect the rules of that system. Madam Speaker, for that reason, I stand to oppose and oppose again the amendment to the Constitution and amendment to the standing orders. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity.
Honorable Opio Wandai Ugunja.
There is a tendency which is creeping into this house, which is very dangerous. The Constitution and the standing orders are very clear. Yeah, the precedence in this house starts with the Speaker, Leader of Majority, Leader of Minority. So in that order, that has to be followed. Otherwise, you will cause chaos in this house. Madam Speaker,
Honorable Pio Andai,
that notwithstanding,
you cannot cast aspersions on the Speaker. You have already been given precedence. You are not the next one. So please take your time and address the motion.
I'm saying this for record. Yes. Let me contribute to this motion. And I will start by saying that all that I've said before concerning this matter stands. And for avoidance of doubt, I don't think it was even necessary for a communique or a communication of the sort that we are dealing with in this motion to come to this House in the manner it did. The House had already, on its own motion, commenced work on specifically the issue of NGCDF and those other funds. So there was no further need for any prompting. And my position on NGCDF and those other funds, including GAF, has been very clear that indeed we need to entrench those funds in the Constitution. And that is the position of my coalition. Because of the clear benefits that have accrued from those funds to our people everywhere in the country. Coming to the issue of the creation of the position of leader of opposition, I still maintain and hold the view that the approach we are taking is not proper. It's not proper. My position has been that if indeed we think the time is ripe for reviewing the Constitution, which I strongly believe it is, then we must take a holistic view of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Because it's now more than 12 years since its promulgation in 2010. It's indeed ripe for review. But we can't do it through cherry picking, through patchwork. That will not be proper. I have also asked many times, and I've gotten no answers, as to what is it that we want to achieve by creating this position of leader of official opposition, whilst retaining intact the structure that we have currently, which is purely presidential. What, for instance, will be the role of the leader of official opposition vis-a-vis the role of the leader of minority party, for instance? And nobody is giving me any answers. I said, and I still want to repeat, that we must choose what we want to do. Agree to abolish this presidential system and go parliamentary route, So retain this presidential system with all its attributes without attempting to create a mongrel in the name of amendment to the Constitution. We cannot, as Kenyans, continue to appear as if we don't know what we want, and yet we really know what we want. The third issue is the matter of amending the standing orders of the National Assembly to allow cabinet secretaries to come before the full House and answer questions from honorable members of Parliament. Again, I've said this time and again, that you cannot do that by merely amending the standing orders. That would go to the core of Article 255 of the Constitution. Because any time you bring an extra person who is not contemplated under the Constitution to be in this House under whatever guise, you are interfering with the functions of Parliament. And therefore, you are compelled under Article 255 of the Constitution to undertake an amendment through a referendum. There are no two ways about it. No two ways about it. And it's not rocket science. Any plain reading of the Constitution will tell you that we have got no two ways about it. So what is this rush then? To try and bring cabinet secretaries to the House through the back door? What is it that is not working now that you want to cure? We have been in this House under this Constitution for the last 10 years now. What is it that is not working with our committee system that you want to cure through these backdoor changes? What is it? Nobody has told me. Nobody. And this is not politics. We know where to play politics. We know very well. This is not politics. And I want those members who are here to listen to me very keenly. Because if we go this route, you will come to regret. We cannot open up this House to strangers really, in parliamentary parlance, to strangers. Because even when the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury comes to read the budget speech, he does so under very clear terms and arrangements. But to allow every other Cabinet Secretary to be thronging into this House every other day, purporting to answer questions directly from members.
What's your point of order, Honorable Owen Baye?
I wish you would allow me to continue. You know.
Just 1 minute. Read, Honorable Speaker, Article 125.
Honorable Opio and I, you have been here long. Please take your seat.
You know, I am getting amazed.
Article 125 of the Constitution says, either House of Parliament and any of its committees has powers to summon any person to appear before it for the purpose of giving evidence or providing information. Parliament has powers to summon any member to do that, either in committee or as Parliament. Thank you.
Continue, Honorable Opio.
Let me continue. And obviously ignore him. Because if that were the case, then why are you amending the standing orders? If it was clear that you can summon them, and you are summoning them even currently under the standing orders, this is not summoning. This is something else. But Madam Speaker, let me say this. On a matter such as this, you need to be very, very sober-minded. Because if you go this route, that you think this is a directive from Suji whatever party, then you will come to regret. We, under the current constitutional arrangement, there is no room for a cabinet secretary to come to the House. There's no room. There's no room. And if you want to get that room, amend the Constitution. And for you to amend it, you have to go back to Article 255. Because it goes to the core. It touches on the functions of Parliament. You have got no leeway to pass it through this House, even if you have 2/3 majority. You must go to back to the people. That is the plain truth. That's the plain truth. So, our position, my position as a member of Parliament for Ugunja, the position of my party, the Orange Democratic Movement, the position of my coalition, the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party, and indeed the position of, I believe, majority of Kenyans, is that this route is dangerous. And we must shun it. So I call upon those like-minded members to join me in rejecting these proposals for the good of posterity. For the good of posterity. If you want cabinet secretaries to be in this House, say so. Let's amend the Constitution. Let those cabinet secretaries be appointed from amongst you. You, members of Parliament. I will be happy, even if I'm on the back bench, to be engaging with cabinet secretaries in the House as my colleagues. I'll be very happy. But to meander, to go around, to gerrymander, no, we are not part of that gerrymandering. We refuse that invitation. We refuse it totally. Totally. And therefore, I want to caution the relevant House committee that is dealing with those amendments, that those amendments, those proposed amendments to standing orders, are dead on arrival. And that if they come here, we should mobilize ourselves and reject them in toto. Because they are unconstitutional ab initio, Madam Speaker. No amount of patchwork can cure that mischief, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me conclude by saying that this House should be left alone to run its affairs. We don't want any interference from whatever quarter. Let this House run its affairs. And let this House maintain its independence. We may differ politically out there, which we should anyway. But when we come here, let's safeguard the credibility, the integrity, the independence of this House, and protect our Constitution. You know, we have said time and again that indeed there are defaults. Any constitution cannot be perfect. Even the American Constitution was amended. In fact, it was amended much earlier than ours. I'm sure Honorable Baya can recall the first amendment to the American Constitution, because we happen to have had some sojourn in that land. I don't know what we are doing there. I don't know. You have to tell me. So, Madam Speaker, so this is such a time that calls for bipartisan approach. Let me conclude. Madam Speaker, if add me some 2 minutes to say something.
1 minute, please summarize.
Just true. Madam Speaker, as we do this, we must also reflect on where we're coming from as a country. In the recent past, we have had to contend with very, very, very unfortunate episodes. There is the recent remark by the Honorable Gachagua. You know, some of these remarks, some of those outbursts have got the effect of eroding the principle or the spirit of constitutionalism in this country. Madam Speaker, I was just looking at Article 27 of the Constitution. Honorable TJ, you can help me. Article 27, sub-article 4. and I may read it for avoidance of doubt. The state shall not discriminate directly or indirectly against any person on any ground, including, among others, conscience, belief, age, color, origin, and so on and so forth. So if you come out in the open and proclaim that the state is now going to adopt an official policy to discriminate against persons or regions in this country on the basis of how they voted, then what are you calling for? What are you inviting? You are asking Kenyans to start nursing other thoughts. That if I don't subscribe to a political thought, if I am not a shareholder in your so-called company, then I must look for ways of fending for myself, including refusing to obey rules, to obey laws, and to pay tax. Then you will be calling for the rule of the jungle. You will be calling for the state of anarchy in the country. That must be condemned strongly by every other member in this House, regardless of our political persuasions. If you find yourselves in a position of responsibility, regardless of how you found yourself there, you must ensure that you conduct yourself in a manner that gives honor to that office. You must shun those primitive tendencies, regardless of...
Thank you, Honorable Pio Wandai. Honorable members, I can see there is a lot of interest, especially on the CBC motion. We only have 14 minutes on this motion. I would ask that as many can be able to contribute. We keep it short. I'll give this chance to the Honorable Daniel Carrizo, MP for Igembe Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I stand to support this motion. The motion on CDF, the motion, Madam Speaker, there are a lot of noises. I don't know if
Continue, Honorable Carrizo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm standing to support this motion because it's a motion that is very important, especially on that gender rule. It's a motion that we will not avoid because it's in the Constitution, that we are all saying we want to uphold and protect. And we have no way but to support this motion so that the women, or rather the gender, be protected. On the issue of having the CSS coming in this House to answer questions other than the committees, I also support it because what the committees will tell us is not what we will be told by the CSS. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I stand to support. The issue of NG, CDF, we also support and GAF, that they be protected in the Constitution. And this being the House of Legislation, I believe, Madam Speaker, the MPs have the capacity to handle the Constitution matters and make sure that all these issues are safely handled in the right manner and protected as per the Constitution. Now, Madam Speaker, I support all those amendments and I stand to support. Thank you.
Member for Sotik, Honorable Sigei. Honorable Moses Kirema, Central Imenti.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this important motion of amendment of our Constitution at this moment. Madam Speaker, it's the right time that we should come up with the amendment since our Constitution has taken place since the year 2010 up to now, even though the said Constitution has not been implemented to the letter as it is supposed to have been implemented, because there are things which have not been legislated upon. But the articles which have been being applied and they require to be changed or to be amended, is the right time that we should touch on them. Madam Speaker, if you look at the part of the constituencies which are said to be and been protected by the Constitution up the year 2024, we have only 1 year, that's the 2023. And by the time of the year 2024, some constituencies may not be seeing the light of the day because they will be scrapped, for they have not met the requirements of the tenants as it is supposed to be in the Constitution as it comes to the population threshold. So, Madam Speaker, it's the time that we should allow the amendment of this Constitution in despite of the source where it has emanated from, because what's important is the amendment of the Constitution. Even though when it comes to that stage of amendment, I will bring that idea of amending the Constitution so that at least the constituencies which have been sent to be threatened by the existence of the Constitution, or whereby if they have not met the threshold, they are supposed to be scrapped off. As I heard a colleague of mine here saying that they should be scrapped off if that moment come in. We will come with an amendment to see that they still continue to exist. For if people have been given a chance to have a constituency, and now you come to tell them that those constituencies shouldn't be struck off, Madam Speaker, that won't be a source or recipe of chaos. Now, as I sit down, the idea of amending the Constitution to entrench the CDF and GAF should be at least accommodated by every member in this Parliament. For without that one, we are being left at the mercy of those who call shots of the day, possibly the executive, because they may decide that today we are going to have CDF and somebody else come in the same office tomorrow and says that we should not have it. We are the mercy of activists in this Republic of Kenya, whereby activists sleep one night, the following day, they go to court and they say that CDF is not in the Constitution. That's why I'm supporting the Constitution amendment so that we can have GAF and CDF in the Constitution. When it comes to having CSs, cabinet secretaries coming in this house, we address it at the right time when it comes. Because I still believe, as far as I'm concerned, having gone through that Constitution and being one of those people who did campaign for this Constitution in the year 2010, those are strangers in this house. In despite of the side which I am in the house, those are strangers. Let's not mix ones. They are strangers. As an advocate, I will not be intimidated by anybody to support what is wrong. It is wrong and it is wrong. But what is right, we are supposed to support it. That's all, Madam Speaker. I support the motion as it is.
Honorable Abdul Haro, Mandera South.
Honorable Speaker, sorry, I had contributed to this motion last week.
Thank you. Honorable members, please note if you've contributed, you cannot contribute twice to the same motion. This chance will go to member for Dagoretti North, Honorable Beatrice Elachi. I see she's not in the house. Next chance will go to Honorable Paul Biego, Chesumei. Okay, not in the house. Honorable Robert Mbui, Kathiani. You have contributed. Honorable Julius Ruto, Keses.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity you accorded me to make a contribution on the motion before us. I think this motion is a continuation of what we had already discussed in the previous session, where all of us are of the interest that CDF, GAV, and any other related decentralized fund is a fund that was designed to bring out the equalization among our communities and across the board in the country, Kenya. I know over time it has come a lot of challenges because of the related acts, and those people who have tried to divine the placement of these particular funds. But when you look at the spirit of the same fund, and from the feedback of the intended support people, they really appreciate that the fund has really transformed their livelihood. To avoid all these shenanigans and all these legal litigations here and there, we all know that Constitution is the supreme law of the country. And it's from the Constitution that we derive the powers, we derive the legislations, we derive the orders, we derive the functions and the applicability of all these particular laws. So I stand to support that it is high time that when such opportunity has come, let us all of us embrace the discussion for the good and for the benefit of the people of Kenya, as it is stipulated in Article 1, that all these powers belong to the people of Kenya. I know this amendment to the Constitution also has come with other proposals, including that the Parliament can allow the CSS to come in here so that they can be cross-examined, they can be questioned by the whole representative of the people, which in my case, that is a debatable discussion. And if it is for the good of the people of Kenya that the CSS come across here, we subject them to cross-discussion questions and for them to explain themselves to Kenyans here, then be it be good. Though there are several schools of thought here, about legal minds are telling us when they are here, we'll have mixed up the kind of the system of administration from presidential and parliamentary. But it is good for us to discuss and look at the objective and the spirit in these amendments so that we're able to progressively improve governance and citizen participatory in matters of governance so that we're able to establish good governance in this country, Kenya. That the Kenyans who have had confidence in the elected people should be able to transparently participate and follow up decisions that are being made for the good and for the benefit of them. So I stand to support the motion, and in this case that we need to protect this fund so that CDF, NGAV would be able to assist what ought to have been done by the national government with the challenges they are facing in terms of procurement system, lengthy processes of executing this process would be brought down to where the people are. And I believe it is not in any way complicating what devolution is doing, because devolution has got its own distinct function and the fourth schedule clearly describing the mandate and the resources that have been earmarked for the same functions. And for this one, it's a national government function, only that it is being simplified through the local unit of constituency or a county in terms of county members of parliament. So I stand to support the motion, and I say that it is high time we look at it. And in any case, Constitution, those who promoted the Constitution, I remember there was some discussion that there would be some few issues that ought to have been looked at that time. And all of us agreed that let us pass this Constitution and then progressively we can bring in the amendments. And I feel after 10 years, already now we have served to be informed by this Constitution. Do know the challenges, the hiccups, the shortcomings, and it is as good because what now we are doing is informed by the experience that we have encountered through implementation of the said Constitution. So I want to implore upon this House that let us embrace this discussion and take it as an opportunity to straighten, to align where challenges is being experienced, so that as we are able to see the smooth operationalization of this Constitution and for the ultimate benefit of the core objective as to why the Constitution 2010 was brought in by the people of Kenya, who are the sovereign people of this country. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I stand to support this discussion. Thank you.
Importance to Kenyans that they don't understand what is going on in this House. Let me be honest, we all know that. And I pray, Mr. Speaker, that you will make the communication, especially as Sifuna has said on deputy, if that has not been put in the PPDT.
So, Honorable Senators, we have ventilated enough on this matter for almost 1.5 hours. I'll give you 1.5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, the only matter which has not been addressed is sub judice. Sub judice, once a matter is already live here, then immediately the courts respect that and they don't interfere with the matter. Once a matter is already live in court, then Senate cannot deal with it. What has happened in this matter, these proceedings were prosecuted yesterday, and it's a matter of public notoriety even to the tribunal that the matters were already live in Senate. So we will deal with this matter in court on 28th. It's a matter of preliminary objection there in court, and I'm sure the suit will be disposed at the same day. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Bagweni, Senator. Actually, that will really relieve this chair from all this agony. If you're in my socks or my shoes, you must know what I'm carrying on my shoulders. I can see today Senator Sifuna is really sympathetic with me. And that I mentioned is my children senator. I think moving forward now you should be my good friend. Yes. So, honorable senators, I think this matter should rest there for today, so that we can make some progress with the other business of the day. But I really want to thank you, and most sincerely, because today we have really exhibited good conduct as senators. The country is happy from both sides. We have argued enough. Both sides have their points, and this is what is going now on debate. This is house for debate, house of debate. Senior, what is it again?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Kadrimuma, are you trying to compete with the elder? That you are complaining, you have given him a minute. The council of the elders will curse you, so just keep quiet. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm sorry. I'm coming at the tail end of the debate. But, Mr. Speaker, you have been very patient with us today, and I commend you for that. Mr. Speaker, what we are discussing here is not legal or even standing orders, because the standing orders are very clear that once the political party has communicated, then the matter goes to the Speaker, and the Speaker just, communicates. That's all. But, Mr. Speaker, the issue we are discussing here is more political than legal or even according to our standing order. Mr. Speaker, the political party, which is the Jubilee, have clearly declared that they are supporting the Kenya Kwanza. And Mr. Speaker, why should they stick to the side? I mean, here we are not going to be whipped by a Jubilee, but because they have already decided to join the Kenya Kwanza. And the reason is because Kenya Kwanza is poaching our members from this side. Mr. Speaker, if they stop this bad habit of poaching from our side, Mr. Speaker, these issues we are discussing here, forth and back, this is because of interference by the majority side politically. And we are ready to face you politically, but you should not continue to interfere, yes, with our members. You have already poached them, and we have given them to you. So why are you still interfering with us?
At least a comment on Sifuna, because he has not been enjoying.
Thank you. Senator Nyonka, who are you informing? Senator Buru Ondinga?
Yes, sir.
But Dombonde is now on the floor.
No, Mr. Speaker, just give me a minute, sir. It's so important. I've been waiting
I've been waiting, sitting here for the last 3 hours.
No. Senator Nyonka, just a minute. I will give you a chance.
Speaker, I know I shouldn't be on the floor when you are there, but gentlemen, relax.
Senator
Take
Nyonka.
it easy. You are in power now. Power is transitory.
Under Senator Nyonka.
Power is transitory. Relax.
Under Senator Nyonka. Honorable Senators, I'm making my second communication. Honorable Senators, in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, we have 10 teachers from Mundi Awori Primary School in Busia County who are in the Senate on an education tour. I request each member of the group to stand when called out so that they may be acknowledged in the issue of Senate transition. They are one, Nobati Baraza Peri, and teacher, Eunice E. Bwile, deputy and teacher, Tolin F. Awino, teacher, John O. Onditi, a teacher, Bonaventure Luyemba, a teacher, Boniface Wanjara, also a teacher, and the following 3 other teachers, Mulekano Ann, Jacqueline Ngila, and then we have Vincent Oyobo on charge of welfare, and lastly but not the least, Juma A.U. Jospat, from the Examination Council. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. Next order. Who has given you the opportunity now, Senator, Minority Leader? How can you just stand up and start speaking, even without the mic? Have your seat and just communicate appropriately.
Yes. I've already pressed. You didn't have a notification, or you didn't see it. I've already pressed on my
The mic is off. No mic.
The mic is off. You have not been reading the mic. Mr. Speaker, I'm only saying that
Do you have? I think we concluded that under Minority Leader. And from last week I said you cannot compel the Speaker to make decisions on the chair. No, today I might lose on you again. No. You know, I've been so lenient the afternoon, and now you are taking me back again to the same thing we have concluded. Honorable Minority Leader. So who is the one of the court order? And he not to have the court order. The same court can clear him. You argue those issues in court. Always making that judgment. That is the issues you should do on Monday, the 28th. The court order is very clear. And I'm happy Senator Manzo is very well equipped with this information. He said there are things you do during the mention on Monday. Next order.
Order number 3, messages.
Order.
Order number 4, petitions.
Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Chairperson, Standing Committee on Education. You have their papers today?
Mr. Speaker.
Consult the chair, kindly consult.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, the 21st of February, 2023. Mr. Speaker, this is the report of the Standing Committee on Education on its consideration of the County Vocational Educational and Training Bill 2022, Senate Bill number 3 of 2022. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What is it, Senator Sifuna?
Mr. Speaker, we do appreciate that the chair has been very patient and allowed people to debate. The question we're asking ourselves is, what was the point of all those submissions? because there is only one question we wanted your guidance on. The matters not covered by this court case, when will that communication be made? Please, Senator, allow me to address a question to the Speaker.
I'm able to multitask. Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, we just want guidance on when the communication that is not covered by the court order will be made. All that is all. Then the rest of the matters before the court, we will go to the courts. We have no problem.
Proceed.
Should I proceed, Mr. Speaker? I'm saying the only question we're asking ourselves is when will the pronouncement or the communication be made over the position that is not covered by the court case? Because as we have said, Mr. Speaker, and the court order is before you, the case is specific to the question of the seat of the whip. It does not cover the seat of the deputy whip. Mr. Speaker, when can we have that communication? That's all we're asking.
You know, Senator Nairobi Senator Sifuna, you know the issue of when is what has caused us all this problem. If there is anything that has been not covered, that has not been covered by the court order, then that matter I will look into the court order and then I will communicate. But now the when and how, you leave that to the office, to my office to communicate. And also, you know, I don't work in isolation. We work with a team of experts who run the house. So we'll be able to go through the court order and advise. Thank you. Mr. Senator Ososi. I thought you should be now crafting some communication because you are an expert in this matter.
Mr. Speaker, I have had the benefit to look at the detailed orders issued by the court. And since in your communication, you have somehow alluded to that court order being part of the documents that are guiding your decision this afternoon. But one important issue is that the detailed order seems to suggest that this House reviews the decision it has made in regards to the Senate Business Committee. Now, I don't know how that will be done because we already made a decision. We now have a proper Senate Business Committee constituted. So by admitting that order to this House, what is the way forward, Mr. Speaker? Because, and that's why Senator Omugeni was requesting that that order be tabled before the House. We discuss it because there are some fundamental issues in that order which are going to affect this House fundamentally, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Haji.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've listened to the proceedings and the submissions by the members, and I would not want to correct my elder who has spoken here before me that and stated that Jubilee has been poached and has moved to the Kenya Kwanza side. I want to make it very clear. As a ranking member of Jubilee, we have not left the Azimio coalition. And also, it is very imperative and important that we make it very clear as Jubilee members that we are founding members of Coalition Azimio. And we have invested heavily in Azimio coalition. And if anybody on our side has a problem with Jubilee, it is not for us to leave Azimio. And there is no way they can remove us from Azimio. The bone of contention, Mr. Speaker, sir, between us and our colleagues is an ideological difference that we have. We've heard here very clearly from the distinguished senator of Homa Bay when he said that they believe that the president and the Kenya Kwanza government is a legitimate government, but in their eyes, they are illegitimate. Whereas in Jubilee, we're arguing that the Kenya Kwanza government and the president of the Republic of Kenya are legitimate through and through. That is the difference. And Mr. Speaker, sir, for the minority leader to stand here and mislead the House, that the dispute is between the minority side, is between Fatuma Dulo, Senator of Isiolo, and the minority side, is misleading the House. First, they came for our Public Service Commission seat. Then they came for Senator Kamar, Professor Kamar, in the House Business Committee. Now they are coming for Senator Dulo. Who is next? So should we just sit? Exactly. Should we just sit aside and watch them cannibalize the members of Jubilee one by one? And they come to this House and say that the Speaker cannot referee between the political parties, which is fair. If the Speaker cannot do it, the courts can do it. And that's why Senator Dulo and Jubilee went to court to stop this injustice which is going on here. We have not left Azimio. We have a difference. And I stood here last week and said that we should sit down as members of the coalition and iron out our differences. But the members here do not want to do that. So what choice are we left with? They cannot have their cake and eat it too. Yes. Mr. Speaker, and that's why we will stand with Senator Fatuma Dulo. They took our House. We will stand, the two of us. It doesn't matter. We will stand and we will fight our case. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chalage, let's hear from this end.
You are next.
Mr. Speaker, I rise under Standing Order 190 on the Senate Business Committee and its role, Mr. Speaker, and also on the presiding of the House of the Speaker, that is Standing Order number 18 and 19, and also Standing Order number 17 on the conduct of a business, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the issue, you have given a ruling that you shall communicate. It is only fair that if there is any decision, and I'm surprised because my friends here, including Senator Otsozi, are alleging that they have not seen a court order, including Senate Minority Leader. Yet Senator Sifuna, Mr. Speaker, if you are keen, he was waiving a court order. So, and you used it when you are presenting yourself. Through you, Mr. Speaker, just protect me so that I prosecute my point, is that this intellectual dishonesty is unfair, Mr. Speaker. Because you have given a ruling, why are they challenging your authority, yet they want your authority to use to prosecute the agenda, Mr. Speaker? And therefore, Mr. Speaker, it is out of order. If there is any issue, Mr. Speaker, you don't sit alone in Senate Business Committee. The membership of Senate Business Committee includes the Speaker as the chairperson, the Senate Majority Leader, the Senate Minority Leader, the Senate Majority Whip, and the Senate Minority Whip. So if there is any issue that it needs to be tabled or to be prosecuted through the normal procedures, Mr. Speaker, it should be through the Senate Business Committee where you preside over, Mr. Speaker. They should not make the country believe as if the decisions you make in this House, or even now you carry order of business in this House, is because as Senator Katuri Murungi, not as the House of the Speaker, which is Senate Business Committee, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say, to go on record, Mr. Speaker, that even Senator Oburu Odinga has alleged that we are poaching. I don't know whether that is parliamentary or not. But the point is that, Mr. Speaker, as Kenya Kwanza and as a ruling coalition, Mr. Speaker, we need to be honest with this country. Because if you are not respecting the rule of law, Mr. Speaker, then why are we here, Mr. Speaker? And therefore, even Senator Haji, Mr. Speaker, Senator Haji and Senator Oburu Odinga, Mr. Speaker, Kenya coalition, Mr. Speaker, as a ruling coalition, everybody is welcome. Even if today ODM wants to join government and de facto government, there is no problem. Because that is the essence of political parties' democracy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm still on point of order, Mr. Speaker. I don't know why Senator Ledama is getting agitated, and I was listening to him, Mr. Speaker. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, let no one intimidate you, challenge your authority. You are the authority, an absolute authority, Mr. Speaker. If you have made a ruling that we proceed with Senate Business Committee, so be it. Anybody who misbehaves and rule, Mr. Speaker, standing order 123, 121, they should be thrown out, the way I was done.
Honorable Senators, I think this issue is well praised, it shouldn't be. Yeah? I want to give Senator Onyonka 1 minute and we conclude this matter.
Mr. Speaker, thank you so much. I really beg you, sir, that I'm beginning to be very discouraged being in this house because I hardly get an opportunity to speak when I have to. And my seniority should give me precedent. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, under the Powers and Privileges Act, if you sit and look at what that act talks about, you as the Speaker of this House has no business discussing or deliberating the issues which are taking place between Jubilee and the Azimio coalition. Mr. Speaker, I really want to congratulate my brother Mungatana. You've been in this house for a very long time. What you have said today has made me have extreme amount of respect for you. Let us not sacrifice this house on the expediency of the political wars that are taking place in this country. Let us protect this house because, Mr. Speaker, this house is protected for me to come and discuss anything, particularly issues of national interest. And I may not be able to speak them out there because somebody may sue me and say that I have actually destroyed the name and made allegations against them which are not true and they're all false. But this house, the privilege and the protection that I have in this house allows me to discuss anybody and anything so long as it's within the law. That is the standing orders and the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I want to beg with you, be greater than many of us, be greater than even yourself. Make a ruling that protects the Senate. Allow the two parties to go and fight out there, but allow this house to be independent and for the house to do what it is legitimately meant
Senator
to do.
I gave
Thank you,
guidance
Mr. Speaker.
to the way forward. I did that. And I want us to make progress. Kindly, next order. Next order. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Senator Waume Wamatinga. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I allow to give. Yes. I think, Mr. Speaker, sir,
You know, Senator,
I think the taxpayers sent us here to talk about these things.
I've given a lot of time to air your issues.
It is.
And I gave guidance on way forward, what we need to do. We cannot live on one standing order from 2 p.m. There is nothing new, even you are quoting. There is nothing new. Quote. Just a minute, Senator Wamatinga. Which is standing order?
Standing order number 2.
Yes, proceed on what?
Mr. Speaker, I rise on standing order number 2 on interpretation of the standing orders. Mr. Speaker, let us not act as if we just dropped out of school yesterday. We are guided by this standing order, Mr. Speaker. These standing orders, Mr. Speaker, define what a whip is, Mr. Speaker. And what you're being invited to, Mr. Speaker, is by the chair violating these standing orders. Standing order on interpretation says, A party whip means a senator designated by a parliamentary party as the party whip for the purpose of transacting the transaction of business in the Senate, and includes the majority whip and minority party. In the interpretation, it further defines a parliamentary party, and I will read it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a parliamentary party, and I'm happy to read it here on interpretation, means a party or coalition of parties consisting of not less than 10 senators. Mr. Speaker, seriously, if we cannot respect our standing orders, what exactly are we doing? What example are we showing to future leaders?
So what is out of order now?
Mr. Speaker, I do not want to say the chair is completely out of order, but I just want to say that by violating this standing order.
Who has violated the standing order?
Mr. Speaker, the chair, unfortunately, with all due respect, is violating the standing order.
You're out of order, Senator.
Mr. Speaker, I have indicated clearly
next
that
order.
He's violating the standing order.
Next order.
Mr. Speaker,
next order.
With all due respect.
Oh, Amatinga, proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Speaker, sir, I arise to give notice of a motion enhancing highway safety and conveniency that I and Senator Mohammed Faki together felt that we should Mr. Speaker, sir, let me say that this Friday I'll be laying to rest one of my nephews who I lost through a road accident at the age of 21, and therefore feel that this is very, very important to us. That aware that 67% of the road crash fatalities and injuries in the country comprise of economically and productive age groups between 15 and 64 years, and that the importance of good post-crash care reduces death and disability, and the suffering of the road crash survivors creates the urgent need for an effective emergency medical care system and elements and process on our highways. Mr. Speaker, sir, further aware that lives and properties are lost or irreparably damaged daily on the major highways in the country due to the accidents and the explosion of fuel tankers, and the lack of accessible road and side amenities such as medical clinics, rescue centers, fire engines, and ambulances hamper efforts to mitigate the carnage caused by accidents, rescue lives, and put out fires. Cognizant that setting up safe stopping points for the road users at regular intervals with the necessary roadside amenities such as fuel stations, parking space, restaurants, telephone booth, minor repair shops, medical facilities, and toilet enhances total travel experience, and lack of these points make it impractical for drivers to stop as often as they would wish, resorting to driving-related fatigue, a significant contributor to the accidents on the highways. Further cognizant that provision of the amenities such as ambulances, fire trucks, and satellite medical clinics to provide emergency services to the road accident victims would save lives lost daily on the major roads. Acknowledging that the governments across the world, such as France and Germany, have taken the task of setting up such amenities through incorporation of the basic provision in their road and transport structure through different models of public-private partnership, risk or ownership. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves that the Kenya National Highway Authority, in collaboration with the Council of Governors, to come up with a policy framework on the incorporation of road reserves for roadside amenities in all highway designs. The Ministry of Health, Roads, Transport and Public Works, in conjunction with the Council of Governors, to undertake a survey to ascertain the specific amenities required but not available on the existing highways, such that satellite medical clinics, fire trucks and ambulances, and identify the most convenient location to develop them. And the Ministry of Roads and Transport, in conjunction with the Council of Governors, to develop public-private partnership guideline on leasing of the road reserves to developers, financing and construction of the amenities, and the packaging of the incentives to attract investors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
We have several statements. We start with Senator Wahome Wamatinga. If you still have some energy, or you can wait for the next one.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I arise on the request for a statement on the form of Form 1 intake in the country. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Order 53, Section 1, to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the Form 1 intake in the country. In the statement, the committee should outline the criteria for selection and procedure followed in enrolling students in Form 1 in Kenya. State the efforts that are taken into consideration when allocating Form 1 position to a student, giving reasons why students are seldom enrolled to the schools they select. Explain why these students, some of whom are 14 years old or younger, are made to travel extra long distances across several counties to join Form 1 classes, yet they are equally good schools within their counties. Fourth, provide details of what happens to Form 1 positions when students fail to report the schools they had been selected to join. 5, clarify whether there are any plans by the Ministry of Education to streamline the procedure in order to ensure a better process during future Form 1 selections. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a very, very important affair, and we would want the Committee on Education, owing to the fact that some of the people are
Senator Wamatinga.
As young as 14 years, they do address it.
That will be well handled by the committee. We have to... let us have all the statements then. You keep your comments. We have two statements from the Senator for Kisumu County. Professor Odhiambo Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I have two statements this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, sir, the first statement is on disaster preparedness in Kisumu County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations regarding disaster management preparedness in Kisumu County. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee should, 1, give details on the initiatives the county government has taken to guarantee disaster management readiness, prevention, mitigation, response, and recovery in case of a disaster. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, sir, state whether the county has a well-equipped firefighting brigade with an adequate and well-trained staff complement capable of managing disasters in the county, noting that in the recent past, the county has been faced by fire disasters in trading centers such as Katito, Paponditi, amongst others, most of which received no response from the county government. Thirdly, to indicate whether the county government of Kisumu has conducted public trainings on fire safety and first aid, and if there are public emergency lines that locals can call in the event of a fire break. And lastly, list the number of fire-related disasters in Kisumu County in the past 12 months, stating the nature of the response by the county fire department and the amount of loss and damage that impacted and that the people have suffered. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, my second statement is on the invasion of the Ahero rice fields by Quelea birds in Kisumu County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on the invasion of the rice fields by Kolea birds in Kisumu County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, appraise the Senate of measures put in place by both the national government and the county government of Kisumu to control the invasion of rice fields of a Ahero irrigation scheme by thousands of Kolea birds that are destroying hundreds of acres of rice plantations each day. Secondly, to state the measures in place to compensate farmers in a Ahero irrigation scheme whose rice plantations have been destroyed by Kolea birds, noting that rice farming is the only means of livelihood for residents of Ahero and Kano. Thirdly, to state the efforts put in place, if any, to improve rice production in Kabonyo, Kanyagwal, and Ahero schemes. And lastly, to outline preventive measures and policies, if any, that the ministry has put in place to contain Kolea birds in order to ensure that rice farmers' hard efforts are in future not ruined by birds. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you. Next is Senator Enoch. You can see he's not around. Senator Mohamed Chute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm requesting for a statement on the acquisition and distribution of relief supplies by the county government of Marsabit and the neighboring county governments. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations on the acquisition and distribution of relief supplies by the county government of Marsabit and the neighboring county governments sourced by the county's development fund. In the statement, the committee should, 1, disclose the nature, type, quality, packaging, and price of the relief supplies distributed to the residents of Marsabit, Mandera, Isiolo, Wajir, Samburu, and Turkana counties that have been severely affected by the drought. 2, provide a detailed list of beneficiaries and distribution channels used in supplying the relief supplies and water tracking per ward in all the affected counties. 3, state whether the projects were tendered for, providing details of who won the awards. 4, establish the total amount that has been utilized in the acquisition and distribution of relief supplies from the development fund in all the 6 counties. And outline 5, if there are plans in place by the above mentioned county governments to implement and shift to cash transfer programs so as to have more communities benefit from similar projects. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Chute. You have 2 other statements from Senator Murango.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving this opportunity. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to request for a statement from the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism on the ownership, status and revival of Moya cotton ginnery. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a status report on the ownership of the parcel of land occupied by Moya cotton ginnery, detailing the acquisition process of the land, its acreage, and the legal ownership. 2, inform the Senate of the governance and administrative structures of Moya cotton ginnery before it corrupts. And 3, state measures, if any, the government has put in place to ensure that the Moya cotton ginnery is revived to cater for the renewed interest in BT cotton growing in Kirinyaga County, resulting from the need to diversify to more resilient crops variety due to ground bombing. Mr. Speaker, the second statement, again on the same standing order 53.1, I stand to seek the statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding the registration and welfare of people living with disability, PWD. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state the number of persons registered with the National Council for Persons with Disability, NCPWD, as living with disability from the year 2022 to date. 2, inform the Senate on the process of registration of persons with disability, PWDs, recommending ways to simplify the procedure and make registration services more accessible. 3, outline the criteria used by the government to distribute assistive devices to PWDs, stating why a number of disabled persons still lack access to the necessary assistive devices, and further spell out measures, if any, put in place to ensure PWDs get assistive devices and attendant health services for their various forms of disability. And lastly, explain the cause for the increased number of people living with disability begging on the streets of major towns and urban areas across the country, and the steps being taken by the government, if any, to provide them with the necessary social assistance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, thank you, Senator Yeduku Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to request for a statement on the status of land discharge process in Lamu County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I raise person to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources for the status of land discharge process in Lamu County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a status report on the settlement fund trustee mandated to settle residents on alienated government land or land purchased by the government from the private owners, stating how many settlements have been successfully completed in Lamu County since the relevant law was enacted and how many are pending. Number 2, cause the publishing of parcel of land in Lamu County under the custody of the settlement fund trustee, informing the Senate of accrued charges for each piece of land. Number 3, state the time frame upon which parcels of land charged by the settlement fund trustee should be transferred to residents of Lamu County after residents settled charges against their parcels of land. Number 4, state reason for the failure by the government to facilitate the discharge process of the said parcels of land, noting that this has had a negative impact on the growth of the county as the owners are unable to subdivide or make transfers. And number 5, Mr. Speaker, outline plans if any, the government has put in place to ensure the discharge process is hastened and a waiver is offered on the accumulated land rates. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Perry Sobiko, do you have a statement or yeah, sorry? Yes, proceed.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I arise on Standing Order 52.1 to make a statement on an issue of general topical concern, namely the unacceptable excessive force on disciplinary measures meted against our children by uncouth individuals. Mr. Speaker, children are a blessing who bring so much joy to their parents. the community, and indeed the nation as a whole also considers them as an important asset. Further, Article 53(1)(d) of the Constitution expressly provides that every child has the right to be protected from abuse, neglect, harmful cultural practices, or all forms of violence, inhuman treatment and punishment, and hazardous or exploitative labor. The rights of children have also been protected and preserved by a number of legislation, including the Children's Act 2022 and the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Moreover, Mr. Speaker, both the Education and Children's Act have given clear guidelines on how to correct pupils when they go wrong in the course of attending schools. Mr. Speaker, while I agree that it is important to mold and correct children, whether at home or in school, to ensure they grow knowing what is right and wrong as they are being brought up, this correction should not be punitive, embarrassing, or inflicting pain, and or to some extent, even grievous bodily harm. Mr. Speaker, there are three cases that have occurred over the recent past, which have greatly disturbed me and have led to this statement. The first incident is that of a widely circulated video clip of a scene allegedly in a school where teachers supervised a traumatic sexual molestation of young children against each other. The said clip drew countrywide attention to what may be happening to our children at the hands of perverted grown-ups who are expected to be protectors or role models and morally upright individuals. Mr. Speaker, the second one was an incident in Korea where one young girl who had run away from home in order to escape from being forced to undergo female genital mutilation and had been under the protection of in a school. When she decided to go back home at the end of the holidays to prepare to return to school, she ended up being badly assaulted, whipped, and publicly humiliated by young men allegedly under the direction of her own brother. She has been accused of being a disgrace to her family for refusing to undergo FGM practice and opted to pursue education when schools resumed. This incident is unacceptable as the government has a whole department funded by taxpayers to champion anti-FGM practices among communities and to protect girls threatened by these traditions, cultures, and rituals. Mr. Speaker, a third incident that came to the public attention happened in Kisii area where a young man is bound up with ropes and whipped in front of a girls' parade in school as a punishment. Mr. Speaker, the scary question is, how many more graphic, horrible crimes against the right of children have gone unnoticed, unreported, or intentionally covered up? Whereas the above incidences may appear isolated and remote, it has prompted my concern regarding what kind of punishment is right. Mr. Speaker, what amounts to adequate correction, both within schools and in community environments? Mr. Speaker, I wish to condemn these heinous acts in the strongest terms possible. The acts have obviously traumatized the victims and may have permanent effect in their lives. Teachers, boards of management members, parents, and society in general should be dependable role models, mentors, and good moral champions to ensure such incidences do not continue happening in our society. We cannot stand by while children are brutalized and traumatized in the name of administering punishments. Mr. Speaker, let parents, guardians, and school administrators have compassion while correcting the children under their care whenever they err. We must all uphold respect for the rights of children as provided for in the laws. Anyone messing with children's lives should answer for their irresponsible and unbecoming conduct. I also call for psychological counseling to help remove the trauma visited upon these victims and many others in the society. As a leader and a mother, I am of the view that the Children's Department should work with the law enforcers to take appropriate action if and where necessary in order to safeguard children from abuse, neglect, and violence. Mr. Speaker, sir, last I beseech all leaders all over the country to ensure that the rights of children is safeguarded and protected against such evil deeds. Local leaders and communities, including all clergy and leaders of all faiths, should also remain vigilant and act swiftly whenever any person subjects children to such acts of that amount to either sexually molesting or excessive extreme punishment to the children. They are at their most critical formative and mind development stage, and we must be extremely careful regarding what we allow the minds of our children to pick. Our children must be brought up to be upright, moral, responsible, and law-abiding citizens. Our generation is responsible for the posterity we are preparing for this country. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to speak on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll give one or two comments on these statements, starting with the Senator Akio Mtata, Senator of Busia County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Before I make my comments, allow me to recognize the presence of my constituents. I've 10 teachers from Mudiawori Primary School, which is, by the way, is the best public primary school in Busia. So feel most welcome, and they are here by courtesy of the eminent retired former Vice President, the Honorable Mudi Awori, who decided to give them a tour of the city in recognition of their performance. And while on the tour of the city, they said, you cannot visit Nairobi and not visit Parliament. So Parliament, so they are winding up their tour, and they have visited the National Assembly, and they are now visiting the Senate. So feel welcome, and thank you very much. As regards the statement made by the Honorable Senator Penina, it's obvious that something has gone amiss in this country. There's a lot of violence being visited upon our innocent children. And if you go back to the biblical times, if you look at what the Christ said,
what is it, Senator Peris Tobiko?
Yes, Peris Tobiko, Senator Peris Tobiko.
Okay.
Yes, if you go back to the biblical, to the New Testament, the Christ himself looked at children and said, to them belong the kingdom of God. So if we don't look after our children, we cannot claim to be Christians, or we cannot claim to be believers in anything. It means that we don't value what God values. And children are very vulnerable.
children are defenseless. And there are very many videos that have gone around. And some of these videos, the modern cameras usually give the coordinates or the GPS locations of where these crimes happen. So when a video is recorded, any serious police should be able to pinpoint and arrest the perpetrator just by examining the video and looking at the coordinates of where it was recorded. So I hope that our police will be proactive in that, and also pray that the law on children, the Children's Act, be revisited and maybe higher sanctions be passed for people who abuse children, especially within the framework of schools and families where children should feel the most safe. So as I stand to support this motion, I plead with this House that we rally behind the motion, the statement, and make sure that anybody perpetrating violence against children lives to regret it. And this violence against children should be taken further at the institutional level. I think that we should get to a point whereby the government should provide lunch for primary school children. It's extreme violence to have a child go to school on an empty stomach and expect the child to stay for all the hours that they go to school. So I think some form of a feeding program should be initiated. And for my brothers in the bottom-up formation, there's no better bottom-up than raising a child. Because you raise him from the bottom, you raise to a full human being. So within the bottom-up arrangement, let us find a formula for providing children with some form of food. If the former President Arap Moi, may his soul rest in peace, was able to give children milk when Kenya had a much smaller economy, when the budget, if you look at the budget of
don't you tell him what I came here for? Tell him!
Stop it. That's enough.
Go ahead! Why don't you tell him? Ask her what happened, Dad!
I'm not interested. This whole thing's over.
Just get out of my house. I don't want to see you, simple as that. And it's better if... We forget about what happened between us.
What's going on between you and Amparo?
Yes, I accept.
What? Yes to marrying me?
Yes. Alonso, why? Why did you do this to me? I loved you. Why did this have to happen to me?
So you have a girl now, young man? Is she someone I know?
That this can just go free. Action needs to be taken. If it's not taken, and hence, Mr. Speaker, that is how we continue seeing children in our institutions of learning burning schools. If we do not take actions, if we do not actually condemn this much further, then we are going to get into more critical situations that we cannot even be able to get out. So to support Senator Paris on this statement, I urge that the law takes its course, the police be able to take action, and to the parents and to the learning institutions where we take our kids for the knowledge that they need to have. It is a high time that we also know as a country we are in the year 2023. Things have changed, yes. We are in a very digital space with all the sort of gadgets that we have. We cannot say that we're going to deny the modernity that is in place, but at the same time, as parents, let us try and offer more time to our kids, be able to communicate the morals for the betterment of our future generation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Candy, let's go to the next one. What is it, Senator Boni?
Mr. Speaker, I rise on standing order number 52, 3, and 53, 3B. Mr. Speaker, just like today, week in, week out, from the last session, you have been referring these statements to committees. And Mr. Speaker, I never miss sittings. I'm yet to see a single chair of a committee bring here to table a statement in response to the issues members have been raising. Personally, Mr. Speaker, I'm waiting for the last 2 months for a statement on pending bills in Kakamega. And many senators in this House supported the request and brought in the need to address pending bills in their respective counties. Mr. Speaker, could you guide the House? A, should we expect those statements, responses to be tabled? And B, if should we, as we expect, what is the time limit? Some of the statements, Mr. Speaker, are on issues of security. You would want to know if, for example, Mr. Speaker, a senator has raised the issue of the police, the personnel deployed in an area and they are not up to it, where you would expect either they would be moved and so on. You would expect an answer. For how long shall we be waiting? Or we are speaking in vain in this House?
Senator Boni Karware, I hear you very well. The chairs have no obligation to report to the floor of the House, but now it means that your statement for 2 months has not been responded to by the relevant ministry. Because what the committee should do, the chair and his team, is to invite any senator who has raised any matter on this floor to the committee sitting. When maybe you summon the relevant offices, maybe the ministries, the CSs, and any other body. Who do you want to inform, Senator William Cheptumo? He is no longer on the floor.
Yes. Mr. Speaker,
What Senator Kalwala is raising is really a concern. But Mr. Speaker, what we have been doing, I thought it's just good to share, is that once a member raises a question here or a statement, we take up the issues with the relevant ministry. When a written answer is obtained from the ministry, it is shared with the member. And if there are issues that are not sufficiently responded to in the statement, then we can still do a further inquiry from the department. I think that has been in this house, Mr. Speaker, that is really what happens around here. And it is interesting that perhaps Kalwale has not gotten a statement from the relevant committee 2 months after he raised the question. So I think the problem here is the procedure in which we used to inform members on the responses from the ministries, which is not what we used to do in the other house, Mr. Speaker, as you recall. You are a chair of a committee, I was one, and we used to read those statements before the plenary. So I think that is really the procedure we have now.
I can see some chairs have been agitated, including the chair who was my response, Chair Transport.
Mr. Speaker,
1 minute each, I'll give you.
I do not purport to speak on behalf of the other chairs, because of course you are the chair of the chairs. But all I would want to tell the senator for Kakamega who have raised that issue is that the president had seen this problem. And that's why he proposed that we should be having ministers or the CSs at the floor of this house so that they can be answering questions with the speed that is required. Mr. Speaker, I think before pointing for any other chairman, because of course in my committee those who have requested statements have been written for, so that they can appear before the committee and see the responses that we have before we table them in this house. It's better we sit down as a Senate, even without waiting for the National Assembly, that we come up with the right procedures so that we can be inviting those CSS in this house to answer those questions. Mr. Speaker, I'm saying that because, and that's why I had a standing order waiting for your eye. For example, we do have a statement that was raised here by the Senator for Embu on the issue of delocalized teachers, Mr. Speaker. When I try to ask for the same statement with the tweak or with a little bit of difference, I'm told I cannot raise such a statement. Yet it is something that is, of course, in regards to the teachers who are working in other counties, but they come from Kiambu. Mr. Speaker, my teachers are suffering in Narok. My teachers all the way from Mount Kenya are suffering in Narok. But we cannot ask that statement because somebody asked that statement 2 weeks ago or 2 days ago. Yet that statement has not been answered to here. My request to you, Mr. Speaker, because you have that power, when you feel or when you look at a statement and see that it has some urgency, give it some timeline, Mr. Speaker. Tell the chair to give that answer within specific timeline, Mr. Speaker, so that we can have some statements that are answered or reported back to the House with immediate effect. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I'm constrained with time, so I want to give Senator Ngururi 1 minute, kindly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm really glad that Senator Halwale has raised this because it's an issue I've been dealing with personally. I'm not a chair. I was a vice chair, but I was de-whipped because I was also literally pushing for the efficiency of the business of a committee. I personally brought a statement, several statements to the floor of the House actually, concerning, some of them were issues on the Safaricom registration, issues on protecting Kenyans' data. And you know, Mr. Speaker, being in the committee as a vice chair, I could see the bureaucracy that was being practiced, not necessarily by the chair, but there was a lot of dynamics there. And so the efficiency of that committee actually, Mr. Speaker, allow me, do not cut me off. I have seen you. This is a very serious matter. And so therefore, I want to say, Mr. Speaker, if we are not going to give timelines, because can you imagine a statement I raised on registration of SIM cards last year has not been dealt with? A statement I raised on issues of ICT and protection of data, a simple thing such as actually just seeking information. We did not even deal with it. And the only thing that happened to me, Madam Speaker, is that I was de-whipped. And I was removed from that committee because I kept on demanding that the efficiency of the Secretariat has to be put, into account. So, Madam Speaker, as we are dealing with all these statements, in fact, I've now learned I'm no longer bringing statements to the House. I'm bringing motions, I'm tabling bills, and I'm going to make as much noise as possible, because if the committees are going to continue dealing with issues to the effect that by the time they're bringing the reports, the matter is no longer relevant. How is it relevant on registration? Safaricom have done what they wanted to do. They've moved on. We still have not received any tangible. And as vice chair in that committee, I can tell you that there was a lot of bureaucracy that was engineered, and I've actually reported several issues with the Secretariat. And so therefore, thank you, Senator Halwale, because this is the matter that I dealt with. And even if I'm not vice chair, I will be vice chair in this seat here, and I will ensure that we push for accountability so that our statements don't go down.
What's your point of order, Senator Cherargei?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Not a change on the chair, and congratulations. I can see you are wearing our party colors. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, when you look at the Secretariat, and I need guidance on this. Madam Speaker, when you look at Standing Order 52 and 53, 53(3)(b), the Speaker may allow comments in relation to the statement for not more than 15 minutes. I'm saying this, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, being aware that we are past statement hour. Number two, which I need your guidance. So Kenyans and everybody should know that when we give comments or when we write on statements of our colleagues, Mr. Speaker, it is provided under the standing orders. Number two, Madam Speaker, Standing Order 53(3)(3) Part 4B. Madam Speaker, I have had the benefit of chairing a committee, and it is known in the annals of history, this House, I was ranked the best. Not only the youngest, but the best. And then, Madam Speaker, the committee may invite the senator who requested the statement, the relevant cabinet secretary, or any other person the committee may consider during deliberations on the statement and prepare and table a report on the matter. Table. So I needed, Madam Speaker, we need to be fair. This is our standing orders. The standing order number 1 talks about the president, the tradition, the rule of law, the tradition of the parliament that has been set. It says, after the deliberations, the report must be tabled. Madam Speaker, what we are treated to is theater of absurd. Because if the chairpersons of these committees, and I know they had, Madam Speaker, the chairpersons of these committees are, in quotes, cabinet secretaries, or they are proposed. If they're having a problem accessing cabinet secretaries, the CSS, because I'm told some CSS might not be picking calls and PSS, yet the president is picking our calls, then they should say it. So that, because, Madam Speaker, last year, just what Senator Gloria said, I requested a statement on the Tokyo scandal of our athletes. No one has responded up to date. Because allegedly the CSS and PSS, and if the chairpersons are having a problem, Madam Speaker, they should be able to speak to the majority side and the majority leadership, including the majority whip here, and bring, so that they don't come and say, Madam Speaker, we cannot proceed because the minister or the PSS, even as we wait for the constitution to be amended, for CSS and PSS to sit here, we must be efficient and effective, because we are using money, resources from Exchequer, Madam Speaker. Finally, Madam Speaker, the part 2. The law says, and it is our standing order, unless we delete today, may prepare and table a report on the matter. Other senators, I can be invited to Committee of Social Welfare, Labor and Social Welfare. I can go and sit, deliberate. But maybe other senators are waiting for the report to be tabled to give their comments and transmit for implementation, Madam Speaker. So my request, Madam Speaker, even as we proceed on this matter.
Please wind up.
I'm winding up, Madam Speaker, is that the report must be tabled. And therefore saying just we can go somewhere, sit with the committee, deliberate. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, you know, as a friend of the committee, I don't have powers to sign the report nor vote on the report because I'm not a member of the committee. So where do I get my recourse? I get my recourse on the floor of the House among other colleagues. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
On that issue of statements, I hear your interjection, and from the reading of Order 53.3b, it is clear that a statement may be prepared and tabled on that matter. It would be good practice that chairpersons of the committee ensure that they conclude on statements that are raised against the committees, and they are encouraged to table. Though the wording of the order is that it may prepare and table a report on that matter, may then means it's almost discretionary. But the good practice would be that the committees or the chairpersons of the committees table a report so that issues are responded to and issues are given a closure. So I believe that should be the final intervention on that matter. And clerk, call the next. It's a point of order. Senator Mudigi? Okay. Make it very short.
Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi naunga mkono yale yamezungumziwa hapa. Kama ile mambo nisoma mambo ya elimu ni kitu ya kusangaza sana. Utaona itaendelea hivi na itaishia huko msituni. Kwa sababu kama kuna sheria, hata rais alisema walimu wote warudi nyumbani kwao. Kama county tuko na jimbo 47, moja ni Embu. Walimu wa Embu wale wako Machakos, jimbo la Machakos, jimbo la Kitui, jimbo la Meru na jimbo la Kirinyaga. Tunastuka sana, kunasemekana hakuna mahali wataenda kwa sababu kaunti ya Embu iko na walimu wengi. Lakini tunauliza, nje wakati wale walimu walipelekwa huko nje ya jimbo la Embu, wale walikuja, kunafaa kufuatiliwe ama komiti iende ifanye upelelezi inakuanji walimu wa Embu waweze kurudi Embu. Akina mama wako karibu miaka 60 wanalilia huko kwa mkubwa wa elimu. Kwa hivyo nauliza tufuatilie vizuri ndio walimu wa Embu waweze kurudi, si ati kwa kupiga makoti. Lakini tunajua kama itafanyika katika Embu, tutaenda kwa hiyo ofisi ya walimu na tutafoma na hakuna mtu atasimamisha sisi, kwa sababu ni aibu kubwa sana. Kama kulikumbaliwa, si wale vile TSC ilipeleka wale iwarudishe na wale wengine waende nyumbani kwao. Asanti, Madam Speaker.
I doubt whether that is an intervention or a point of order you are raising, but the point is noted. I doubt if that is a point of order. But I think the idea should be for the chairpersons of the committees to respond and do their work. And they should be encouraged to take stock of all the statements that have been tabled since the commencement of this House and proceed to make sure that we can widen up those issues that have not been responded to as a House. Clerk.
Order number 8, motion. Adoption of the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the County Government Additional Allocation Cash Disbursement Schedule for the financial year 2022-2023.
Call upon the Chairperson, Standing Committee on Finance and Budget, to move the motion.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the Senate adopts the report of Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the County Government Additional Allocation Cash Disbursement Schedule for the financial year 2022-2023, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 16th February 2023. and that pursuant to Section 17(7) of the Public Finance Management Act and Standing Order 189(3), the Senate approves the county government additional allocation cash disbursement schedule for the financial year 2022-2023. Madam Speaker, the county government additional allocation cash disbursement schedule is submitted to the Senate by the National Treasury pursuant to Section 17 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012. Section 17(7) of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 requires that the National Treasury prepares cash disbursement schedule for the monies to be disbursed to county governments and transmitted to the Senate for consideration and approval. The National Treasury is also required to publish and gazette the approved disbursement schedule. Madam Speaker, the purpose of disbursement schedule is to ensure predictable transfers from the National Treasury to county governments of funds. Therefore, it serves as a guide and facilitates predictable flow of funds to county governments. This therefore enables counties to effectively plan implementation of targeted projects and programs in a systematic manner in order to deliver their critical functions. Madam Speaker, Parliament approved the county government additional allocation bill, which was Senate Bill number 4 of 2022 in November, and it was enacted into law. The President assented to it on the 12th of December 2022. Following the enactment of this law, the National Treasury transmitted to the Senate the county government additional allocation cash disbursement schedule for the financial year 2022-2023. This schedule was tabled in the Senate on the 14th of February 2023. Therefore, the disbursement schedule was committed to the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget for consideration and subsequent reporting back to the House. Madam Speaker, the committee has considered the cash disbursement schedule and tabled its report in the House for debate and adoption. Madam Speaker, the County Government Additional Allocation Act 2022, as well as the disbursement schedule, has a total of 163 million for conditional grant on supplement for construction of county headquarters and 17.159 billion on conditional allocation finance from proceeds of loans, grants, and from development partners. This conditional allocation from proceeds of loans and grants include the World Bank credit for national agricultural and rural inclusive growth amounting to 3.9 billion. World Bank credit for national agricultural value chain development project amounting to 1.82 billion. World Bank credit of Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture amounting to 2.2 billion shillings. The World Bank credit of water and sanitation development amounting to 3.5 billion shillings. The NIDA grant for primary health and development system amounting to 1.018 billion shilling. The World Bank credit for financing locally led climate action FLOCA level amounting to 1.034 billion shillings. The Government of Sweden grant for agriculture sector development support program 2 amounting to 665.17 million. German Development Bank amounts, financing drought resilience program in northern Kenya to the tune of 410.
Senator, he's moving a motion. He's moving a motion. What is out of order?
Okay.
Not when moving a motion.
German Development
Let
Bank
him finish
finance
moving the motion, and then we'll do
finance,
the point of order.
Thank you. Financing drought resilience program in northern Kenya to the tune of 410 million, and World Bank credit for emergency locust response amounting to 1.2 billion, World Bank credit to finance Kenya informal settlement improvement, KISIP 2, amounting to 1.3 billion shillings. Madam Speaker, the committee considered cash disbursement schedule and observed the following: that the disbursement will be made in 2 tranches as commitment was made by National Treasury, to be done 15th of March 2023 as well as 15th of April 2023, so that within the financial year 2022-2023, the disbursement can be realized. With only 4 months remaining to the end of the financial year, the county governments also need to expeditiously do the appropriation act in order to facilitate the flow of those funds. The disbursement of conditional allocation finance from the national government share of revenue also, we have noted, as it has happened before, will be subject to funds revenue collection of national government. The National Treasury, lastly on the observation, should comply with the schedule as they have indicated, to make sure that within the remaining few months of the financial year, the 2 tranches as promised should also be realized. There is need for also the Senate as well as the county assemblies to tighten the oversight on these funds. Madam Speaker, the committee recommends the following: that the Senate approves the county government additional allocation cash disbursement schedule for the financial year 2022-2023, tabled in the Senate on the 14th of February 2023. Number 2, the county assemblies should also expedite passage of appropriation bills to ensure that the funds are assessed upon disbursement from National Treasury. And the National Treasury should adhere to the approved disbursement schedule and the proposal they gave of disbursing the entire amount in 2 tranches as required. Madam Speaker, finally, the committee acknowledges National Treasury's effort for their submission of county government additional allocation cash disbursement schedule, which is critical requirement for execution of county government budget. The committee also thanks the Office of the Speaker and the Clerk of the Senate for the support extended to the committee in execution of the mandate. I also wish to thank the members of the committee for their patience and also steadfast in making sure this has been promptly processed. Madam Speaker, I beg to move and call upon Senator Kalwale to second the motion. Thank you.
Enjoy a selection of the best. Regina Ray and Tingazi.
Bado hujamwambia unamlike. Umerealiza jamwachilia mkono kutoka nikuje hapa.
Love blossoms in Mexico with the trio sisters in Las Bandidas.
I beg you, please don't go. I want you to be the happiest man in the world with a woman who appreciates and respects you.
An array of music rave.
Make me lie when I don't want to.
Blues.
You are my everything.
Two local gems. And we sit to chat with the Diambo.
You know, I can't even tell whether you're looking at me, seeing me, with the Louis Vuitton.
Classic comedy.
Makono too. Say that again.
Enjoy the Divas programming this February only on KBC Channel 1. Kenya's watching.
Why don't you tell him what I came here for? Tell him.
Stop it. That's enough.
Go ahead. Why don't you tell him? Ask her what happened,
I'm
Dad.
not interested. This whole thing's over.
Just get out of my house. I don't want to see you, simple as that. And it's better if...
we forget about what happened between us.
What's going on between you and Amparo?
Yes, I accept.
What? Yes to marrying me?
Yes.
And also why? Why did you do this to me? I loved you. Why did this have to happen to me?
So you have a girl now, young man?